Blog Talk Radio.
Xavier, Yemasken, Xavier, Sustainer, God be praised. Baruch Hashem. Yes, brothers and sisters, and brothers. Chabarim, Talmudim. First of all, I'd like to give thanks to Kahin Yitzhak, the Honorable Priest Isaac, for that reasonment. Just had a reasonment. Looking forward to having this a discussion, academic and intellectual reasoning discussion between I, Rastafari, and also those from the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church coming forward on the Priest Isaac platform. Looking forward to the 25th of May. So we had a kind of a reasonment, just coming off of that reasonment right here, and give thanks to many of the items that may have tuned in, was able to tune in, but you can check it. It's right there. I think the naming of that is, says Rasai Adonis, who is the real Lion of Judah. And he has Haile Selassie, Jesus. Okay, Christ, right there. I don't know if that's a typo or if that's for emphasis. But be that as it may, let's support one another, support I, fellow Rastafari brothers and sisters, especially the brethren who are, doing the work. Hail up the Priest Isaac once again. And we're looking forward to that, and give thanks for the reasonment, because right now my head is still up there in that particular reasonment right there, where we had left off. Some very vital points. Love his overview. So if you check out the vid, in the beginning of the vid, he gives an overview. I kind of left him a message on that. I mentioned it briefly, and I'm going to mention again as well, because, Revelation 5:5, we zoom in there, but he kind of goes and connects many dots, that anyone who has truly studied, you recognize those are important dots to have connected. Even when you get to Revelation 5:5, have you read Revelation 4? Do you see the connection with Revelation 4 as it connects with Revelation 5? And what about Revelation chapter 3? Chapter 2, chapter 1? Okay, you're in Revelation. Where have you started? Are you familiar with what comes before Revelation? Because there's a cumulative effect even in prophecy in Revelation. Both in the Revelation, that prophetic vision, and the book of Daniel, the book of Daniel. And not just reading. Yes, reading is fundamental, but it's reading comprehension and also reasoning. Because when we all read something, we all might not get the same view. In fact, in reasoning for my brother, there was some perspectives of the same factual content or information that my brother was able to iron sharpen iron on. Other areas was able to affirm and confirm. And I'm thinking like Chan. Many ones don't see it like that. So, that's why reasoning is very, very important. Come make with reason, and I give thanks for that reasoning right there. So now here we pick up after the, you could say, Pesach, Passover, after Fasika. So it's like when in the New Testament talks about when Pentecost was fully come. I said, why does it say it like that? When Pentecost, that's what we're counting right here. So here we're counting from that first day resurrection, right? 7 Shabbats complete. All right. So here's where we kind of cross over from our, Hebrew, Judaic, the roots, the Pesach, and, the Judaic aspects of the groundation, right? And now with Moshiach risen, we're counting from the May 5th. We're going to count from the May 5th. Although others it might be a week difference, like a week, 7 days or so difference. We're going to count from that morrow, right? That morrow, the next day after the Shabbat. That brings us the first day. So May 5th, right? From May 5th, here we're in the first, we can say Shabua, the first of the 7 days, because the Torah is very clear that when we come to the fulfillment, right, the first fruits, we are to count 7 Shabbats complete. And on the morrow after the 7th Shabbat, the language there is familiar to what we are commanded to do according to Torah, according to Leviticus chapter 23, around about verses, I think it's 9 to I think verse 11 is that main verse where it says the offering will be made. And this corresponds to that resurrection, first day, right? Ehud, Yom HaRishon, that later Gentile, European, other Christians refer to as Sunday. So is there a first day observation? Is there a first day fulfillment? Is there a first day service that we as Hebrews, in a general sense, as B'nai Beit Yisrael, house of Israel, or as Yehudi, as Judahites are to observe? Yes, there is. Is there Sunday worship? What you mean by Sunday? We don't use that term Sunday. The ancients didn't use that term Sunday, but technically it's on the same day that others have called Sunday worship. But for us, it was just the first day of the week. But why it's important right here is because now we're into the season of what's called Judaically, Hebraically, the counting of the Omer. In other words, the counting of the growth of crops as the crops grow. I know some of the that might be more familiar. Some of the brethren, some of ones and ones have heard me say this and gone into the study and have a kind of a good understanding of it. But it's very vital, very important, because now that we're out of the Pesach, Passover season, even with resurrection, Tinsaye, Melkam Berhane, Tinsayo, Adarasachu. In other words, a beautifully good light, the Ethiopian greeting, the Orthodox, the Oriental, the true church, and the professing church greeting is a good or welcome. Congratulations, you reaching to the light of his resurrection, the Berhane, light of Tinsayu, of his Tinsayu, of his resurrection. So what does that correspond with in HaTorah? Okay, give me one moment. Just had to grab the sword and some of the other, we could say weapons of the spiritual warfare right here. And we're going to highlight this because here we are kind of fully, right? We're fully out of the first of the 3 times in the year. It says 3 times in the year shall all the males of Yisrael present themselves in a place where he sets Shemo, his name, the Hashem Veya. Now that place traditionally, right, has been over the past maybe more than 2,000 years ago was Jerusalem. In this area of the narrative in Leviticus chapter 23, it is actually the tabernacle, the tent, the tabernacle, also known as the sanctuary, or Hebraically we refer to as the Mishkan. Right? He says to build him a sanctuary where he may dwell and abide, right, amongst the people, in the midst of the people. Right? So here we have Leviticus chapter 9, Leviticus chapter 23 at verse 9. The feast of Jehovah the third, which occurs in that first time, Passover, unleavened bread. Then we have what? We have first fruits, Reishis. And Yahweh spake to Moshe saying, speak to the Bnei Yisrael, sons of Israel, and say to them, when y'all be come into the land that I give to you, and shall reap the harvest thereof. So in the first sense, there was an agricultural, the practical aspect of this feast, this festival, this instruction here, had to do with when the Israelites would come in the land and begin to, you could say, farm and reap. And it says, which I give to you, and shall reap the harvest thereof. So even with Passover, it begins with like the spring season, the month of Abib, the barley harvest. Barley grows quicker than the wheat, right? The month is known as Abib, which refers to that particular harvest. It says, then y'all shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to HaKohen. So that meant at this particular time, the aspect of the Torah that had we could say a practical, earthly, agricultural aspect was to bring that sheaf of wheat, So the wheat, remember, at this time in the season, usually, right, when seasons were more seasons and proper seasons, right, in those times, that region of the world, the barley grows quicker than the wheat. So the wheat is not fully grown, right? It's just beginning to grow. But what is brought forward is that first fruit, right? The first fruit of the harvest, that sheaf of wheat. In Hebrew, the sheaf is known as the omer, right? There's omer, right? Like to say, to speak, saying, and there's omer. It's a soft A and a hard A. But generally speaking, the omer, right? And he shall wave the sheaf, this is verse 11, before Lifnei Yahuwah, before the Exavia feet, before Jehovah. Now, what does this mean here? Where's Jehovah? Where will he wave it? Remember, it's like wave. If I say wave that before Moses, and Moshe is right over there, you go in Moses' face and you just wave it. You see Moses, right? Well, where is before Jehovah, y'all? All right, where's come, make I not reason. Where does it mean in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 11, before the Lord? Where is that? You know, there must be some place. Where is that? You know, people say, well, God is here, there, everywhere, so we just wave it around. You know, so, but it says the priest is going to do this, right? Shall wave that sheaf that we bring. So when we be coming to land and our crops are growing and springtime, Abib come in and we observe the feast of Pesach, right? That evening leading to the next day. Then we have the first day of the unleavened bread. And then we keep moving, we keep pushing until, right, within those 7 days, wherever the weekly Shabbat would occur in those 7 days, right? On that morrow, the next day after that, as it says in Leviticus 23:11, and he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord. Anyone has an answer for that yet? You can look it up, you know what I mean? Where is before the Lord? Where would he be waving it? He would be waving that sheaf, right, before the door of the tent of meeting. Because before the door of the tent of meeting, in that particular direction, if you were to, okay, a good example is, you ever see His Imperial Majesty's, his personal insignia that has the throne? Remember the throne and the two like angels, messengers, and then the line of Judah is right there in front of it. And then there's an empty throne in the background, the two angels, like the two cherubims, right? And then you see the seat, it's like the mercy seat. So the throne is like the ark, and the two angels like the cherubim. And then you see there's a crown at the top of that insignia. And then you see the curtains are drawn back. That is a view, right, artistically representative of into the holy place, right, where we see the throne. Which throne is that? The throne that is the Ark of the Covenant. The two angels that represent the Cherubim or the Kepraim, right, on both sides. And it's that empty throne. And notice what is usually pictured in the throne room, right, holy Ethiopian insignia. What is usually pictured right there? It's usually there's a ball and a rod that's on the seat. It's like an orb actually, an orb and a rod. Remember what was in the Ark of the Covenant? This tells us that this is a pictorial representation on the Davidic Solomonic crest, especially the personal insignia of His Majesty, of the Holy of Holies. I'm pointing this out because when one would bring their offering, and whether it was an animal or what have you, even an animal that was to be slain, right? They would bring it in. The priest would kind of parade it in front of the door of the tent of meeting. Because once you open that like door, once you get past the door, if you look straight in, you will see the curtain. If the curtain is pulled back, as it is in the arma, the insignia of His Majesty, the two angels in the line of Judah, and the curtain pulled back, that is like looking in the Holy of Holies. So when the priest would take that offering, say the sheaf, he will wave it before the Lord. By waving before the Lord, symbolically is to wave it before the door, the patach. In Hebrew, we call the door of the tabernacle the patach. I know it sounds like patach, right? From ancient Egypt, right? Patach, but it's patach. Patach, as an Afro-Shemitic word, is related to fatah in fitah. And we say the fitah neges, the fitah neges, yeah, with that sense of the opening. So the patah, fitah, the patah is the door. So he will wave it before the door because straight feet face to face, this is the direction of where the Ark of the Covenant is. So when we read in the scripture, especially when it's connected with the holy place, the sanctuary, that this or that or such and such is to be done, and the key words is like lifnei Yahuwah, before the Lord, right? As a rite or ritual is speaking of the holy place, is speaking of the Ark of the Covenant specifically, or the direction that leads directly to the Ark of the Covenant, namely the patah, the door, right? The door of the tabernacle. So the priest now, once will come bring that forward to the priest. Remember, the priest cannot go into the Holy of Holies anytime he wants to, right? We get those instructions after the death of the two sons, Acharemot, the previous one, where happened with the strange fire, right? That the high priest can only go in there once a year, and that was for the rites of the Yom HaKippurim, right? So the closer that the priest could get, right, even at this time, right here, was the patah, right? So he would bring that offering, and that would be symbolically waving it before the throne of God, speaking of the Ark of the Covenant. So the Ark of the Covenant for the Israelites is what made worship. In other words, worship, and the holy. So it's an interesting note right here when we speak about Ethiopia, and we speak about what they call Tabot worship. Have you ever heard anyone call it Tabot? Tabot is what the Ethiopians, right, the highlands, refer to as the Ark. In the Hebrew, we refer to the Ark as the Aaron. We refer to the man, right, similar but not the same, as Ahiron. So we have Ahiron and we have the Aaron, right? So there's something that they call Ark worship, right, or Tabot worship. And what is noticed here is that as with the biblical Israelites, it seems as though the Israelites of Ethiopia, the highland Ethiopians of that Judeo-Christian, Solomonic, Davidic, we could say, order, also do something very, very similar to that. And according to the history and the records, they've been doing that for nearly over 3,000 years or so, right? This is a key, because this is such a central aspect to really understanding what we have even written here in the scripts, especially in Leviticus. That's why we focused on that point about, well, where is before the Lord? Where is before the Lord? For them, where is before the Lord? You know? And why does it say 3 times in a year shall all the males of Israel present themselves? So these 3 times in a year are the worship times. We could not worship or offer sacrifice in any place that we pleased or like, according to the covenant, right, at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. This covenant that the Israelites have entered into. Remember that there was even a prior covenant, you know, with Abraham. That's where the New Testament kind of picks up there, along with Melchizedek. But before we get there, let's fully kind of deal with this here. So verse 11, 23:11, and he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord, lifnei Yahuwah, in the face, the presence of Jehovah. Right? Remember, he said, build me a sanctuary where I may dwell. So therefore, we're building him a house, so to speak, where he may dwell. A sanctuary, a tabernacle, where he may dwell. And we get where his presence filled up, where the glory of the Lord filled it up, right? So this confirmed his dwelling, the Shekinah and the Shekinah, you know, dwelling there. the Ark of the Covenant, a symbolic throne right there, to be accepted for you. So he shall wave the sheaf, that first fruit of your harvest, before the Lord, before the door of the tabernacle, to be accepted for you. On the morrow, that's like the next day, after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. Now, scrolling forward, like I said, we already fulfilled that right there. I know we have gone over this a few times because recursive learning is the best kind of learning, recursive learning. Like somebody says, Ross, I want to learn the Fidel, I want to learn the Hebrew or the alphabet. Well, you have to go over and over and over and over and over. You got to repeat it, repeat it. Even if you have to look at what's written to you, repeat it until after a while. What's it? To learn it by heart, to write it upon your heart, to write it upon your memory, right? So now when we scroll down to verse 15, so basically if you're looking at Leviticus chapter 23 with us, hopefully you're looking at a Schofield Study Bible, but even a regular Bible, right? We have the first 3 verses that speak of the Shabbat and the feast. The next 2 verses, verses 4 and 5, that speaks of the feast of Jehovah, Passover, Moshiach, speaking of Yeshua, our Redeemer. Then in verses 7 to 8, we have the second, right, of the 7 feasts and festivals, the Feast of Jehovah, the second, unleavened bread, which is the memorial feast, right? Then we have in verses 9 to 14, the third, right, Feast of Jehovah, first fruits, which symbolizes Messiah, Moshiach, risen. And we've gone through to even show and prove to ourselves and share with others that according to what is written in the scripture and the true and the faithful testimony, historical testimony, that we can see how those in the first century, those Yehudi, those Jews, Judahites, who had faith that Yeshua was HaMoshiach, how they understood that, wow, these things are actually being fulfilled right now. So that early testimony that he fulfilled these types. I mean, we even looked into the Talmud and some other more of the ancient Judaic writings, and even from such a time, there were testimonies of the rabbis even after the crucifixion, right, that were proving that something had changed in the Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement feasts and festivals. That when it says that the veil was split, was rent between the holy place and the Holy of Holies. Remember that even if the door of the tabernacle was open and you're standing somewhere behind, like, say, the brazen altar, and you have good eyesight and you can peer into the holy place, you could not see the ark because the ark was behind a veil. You know what I'm saying? But then what we have in the New Covenant testimony is that when Moshiach, Yeshua HaNotzi, was crucified, that the veil was rent, that paruket, the veil, right? And that's why I point to His Majesty's personal, it's called his personal insignia, but the throne room, the Ethiopian throne room seal, right? Because within that seal right there, with the curtains being drawn back, I don't know if ones want to see that. If ones are looking at a visual representation, there's a crown on top of it, and then the curtains are drawn back. And notice you see the Lion of Judah right there at the lower part in the front of that insignia, that throne room seal. Then when you look past the Lion of Judah, you see that there are 2 symbolic angels, and then there's an empty throne. I'm saying to you that the 2 angels and the empty throne signifies, right, theologically the throne of David, yes, but also signifies the Ark of the Covenant, right? And the proof of that, right, is what is usually on the seat, the empty seat. There's that globe. Remember the same globe we see the King of Kings, Kadamawi Haile Selassie, holding? The same throne, the globe that we see in symbolic representation, pictures, iconography of Christ, holding the scepter and the ball, the globe, or, the celestial globe. Yes. So that's what you see on the seat. And then you see that rod. Remember, what was in the Ark of the Covenant? It was said that in the Ark of the Covenant was the 2 tablets of law, right? The 2 tablets of law was the bowl of manna. Remember, there was a bowl of manna, and then there was Aaron's rod that budded. Remember the rod that budded almonds and all that? Yeah, that was there. Right? So it's interesting that we only see two of those. Now, people say, well, what about the two tablets of law? Have you not heard? Have you not read? You know what I mean? Right? That the word become flesh. Right? It's kind of interesting that we don't see the two tablets of law in that right there, but we see the bowl of manna and we see the rod, because symbolically and according to theology, Yeshua is that living, is that living law, right? Is that living law, that living fulfillment, that perfection of what we call the 10 words. The very reason why His Majesty says this right here, according to his teaching, right here, hear this.
My advice to all is to fulfill the 10 Commandments.
Notice the key word is fulfill.
You are aware of the contents of the 10 Commandments and can elaborate on.
That's interesting there. He says, you are aware. So the people you were speaking to, no doubt, he knew and they was aware. But for many of us, we're not really aware. That's why we must study to shew ourselves approved. So right here, let's get to this, because the ark connection I know is very, very interesting. Oh, let's just get back to the seal. If you can either pause this or take a moment, go Google Ethiopian throne room seal. I think that probably will bring it up. Ethiopian throne room seal. SEAL, seal. And you should be able to see some of the iconic representation. It's also referred to as His Imperial Majesty Gormawi Nagusa Neges, his personal insignia. I'm saying that right there is a view into the Holy of Holies. And it connects with the tabernacle pattern. Because you see the Lion of Judah that's often right there in front, right, where the curtains have been drawn back, right, from top to bottom, rent, drawn back from top to bottom. The Lion of Judah, remember the 12 tribes encamped around the sanctuary, around the tabernacle, around the Mishkan, right? We had 3, 3, 3, 3 at each of the sides. But where was the tribe of Judah? The tribe of Judah, according to the scripture and according to other accurate study, the tribe of Judah was positioned right in front of the door to the outer courtyard. So that means if we're standing in front of the opening entrance to enter into the courtyard, right, the tribe of Judah is there. So how interesting that we have the Lion of Judah positioned right there. So in other words, in order to enter into the tabernacle, everyone who went to give an offering or go into the tabernacle had to go past representatives of the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah was there, right? That tribe whose totem or symbolic representation on their banner was the lion. I know some would say, well, they didn't have no symbols, because that was what the 10 Commandments says, you not to make any graven image and worship it. Well, that's the point. It wasn't an image for worship. It was an image for identification. And even above the Ark of the Covenant were the cherubim, or the cherubims. What did the cherubims look like? Well, the cherubims, obviously they had wings, right? Like birds have wings, right? But they're given instruction to create this, right? Obviously it had to be somehow molten or created, but this is what Yah commanded to be put there, right, on the ark. And also the same cherubim or designs of the cherubim are put on the curtains used inside the holy place. I just want to point that out to people who are, a little bit overzealous, but not knowledgeable. Because they'll say that, well, Israel didn't have any symbols. They didn't have any like pictures of nothing. No, that's not true. Right? They was told not to make any graven images to worship like they did with the molten calf. Right? Because the tribe of Judah had the lion was their symbol because their patriarch didn't mean. Can you show me anywhere where they worship the lion? You know, where the Israelites are going astray. They are worshiping lions because of Lion of Judah. No, get off of that. Right? You know, so let's put things into proper, to proper context. So that point about the Lion of Judah, the position of the Lion of Judah on the Ethiopian throne room seal, His Majesty's personal insignia, and also the representation of the empty throne, so to speak, and the globe or the orb and the rod on the seat and the two angels or the two angelic representatives. This here is bringing out the ark. So the ark and the throne symbol are connected. Before Israel had any king, the ark was sufficient for the heavenly King of Kings, Yahuwah. Jehovah was always King of Kings. All right? And Jehovah, Elohim, called God in translation. So God was always king. Remember, Samuel did not even want to, like when the people wanted a king, he was like, he protested. Samuel protested hard, and Yahuwah said to Shemuel, I know, but let this be so. It's almost like when Yeshua said to John the Baptist, to fulfill all righteousness, like, let it be so, let it be so. Right? I pointed out because Samuel's statements let us know that there was always the kingship of Yahuwah over Israel. But of course, Israel, seeing what other people were doing and how other people were going about it, other people had kings. And even Yahuwah, according to the law of Moshe, has even within the Torah stipulations that when they shall have kings, when Israel shall have kings. Are you familiar with it? Do you know that? Because a lot of times people dismiss things and they haven't even really read something dismissing something that Yahuwah is permitting. Here we have Deuteronomy chapter 17. In Deuteronomy chapter 17, it deals with the offerings must be unblemished, idolaters were to be stoned, obedience to authority. And then when we get to Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 14, it says concerning a king. Concerning a king. And it says, when thou art come to the land which Yahuwah Eloheka, Exariel Amlake, the sustainer thy almighty power giveth thee, and shall possess it or possess her, the land, and shall dwell therein or dwell in her, the land, and shall say, I will set a king, a melech or negus, over me, like as all the nations, all the goyim, right? African nation, Asian nation, whatever nation, black, white, otherwise, just other nations, other national that are about me. Verse 15, thou shalt in any wise set him melech over thee. So even right here, it says that when ones be coming to land, you notice something curious about the language? You know something about the language? Like if you look at language, like poetry or prose, there's sometimes patterns. And sometimes those patterns are like tells. Notice what it says in verse 14 again, when thou art come to the land. Notice what it says in Leviticus with first fruits, right? Chapter 23, verse 10. It says, speak to the children of Israel, say to them, when y'all be come into the land that I give you. What does it say here in Deuteronomy 17:14? When thou art come to the land which Yahuwah Eloheka giveth thee. The only difference really here in these two statements, they both are saying the same thing. Jehovah, your Elohim, is going to give you land. But in the first instance in Leviticus, it says, when y'all. In this sense right here, it's speaking to all the people as one man. When thou. But the same context is there, right, concerning the kingship. So we already have right here a prescription for kingship right here. And here's what it says in verse 15. Thou shalt in any wise, you shall in any wise set king over thee, whom Yahuwah Eloheka, he who be thy Elohim, shall choose. So when we say of Gormawi Nugusa Neges, Kerma Halasalasi, when it is said, right, Siyuma Exavia. Siyuma, the elect of Exavia, the sustainer of God. I know we have gotten into, as Rastafari, part of that zeal, we'll say elect of himself, based on, how we receive that manifestation, as they asked Yeshua. How are you going to manifest yourself to us and not to the world? That means, how are some going to be able to see it, seen, sight, and others might not see it yet, hopefully, yet. Here it says, thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom Yahuwah Eloheka shall choose. So here, the chosen, the elect of God, whom Yahuwah thy Elohim shall choose. It says, one from among thy brethren shalt thou set king Melech over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, who is not thy brother. Now, some Israelites say, well, you talking about the Ethiopians. We're talking about the Israelites. The Ethiopians, the Cushites are not the Israelites. They go back and forth with that. All right. Read in Hebrew and study Psalm 87, verse 4. Right? Read in Hebrew and study, right? Amos, what's the Amos verse? I mean by Amos 9:11, right? But it's not actually Amos 9:11 right there. It is Amos, pray the eye. What it says, are ye not as the children of the Ethiopians?
Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, O children of Israel? Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians? Are ye not as children of the children of the Ethiopians? Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord?
Amos 9:7. Yeah, 9:7. Just had to recall that right there. But I'm thinking about Amos 9:11. You know the 9:11? Yeah, Amos 9:11 right there. So some Israelites would tell you, well, he's saying this because the Israelites, according to some interpretation, were wicked. And therefore, the Lord is saying this because he's likening the Israelites' wickedness to the Ethiopians' wickedness. This is the ISUPK and some. Here, a lot of Captain Azania, ISUPK was reasoning. That's how they interpret it. I said, what? Wow, that is so very interesting. You know what I mean? But truly, the Israelites of Ethiopia are our brothers. This doesn't mean that, say, everyone else, in them regions or all over is our brothers. We have many Africans, right, or those who are called Africans today who are Israelites, and they are our brothers, right? Our brothers are where we find them to the four corners of this earthly plane because of prophecy. But that being said, we can get a little bit more into that, but just wanted to make that point right there, right? Verse 16 says, but he shall not multiply horses to himself. Right? Somebody might say, well, His Majesty had many cars like BMWs and Rolls Royces. I found out that actually maybe he only paid for a few of them, but a lot of those were gifts. It's just a kind of an interesting thing. I figured Mercedes-Benz, since they want to take one of the ancient Trinity symbols from Ethiopia and use it for their commerce, I mean, they could only just do a good deed by giving many of those vehicles to the emperor for free. But what it says right here, he shall not multiply to himself. A gift is a gift, yeah? But nor cause the people to return to Mitzrayim. Another point concerning the King of Kings, Kedemawi Haile Selassie, is that after roughly 1,600 or so years, right, the Ethiopian church, was connected with the Egyptian Coptic church, and it was His Imperial Majesty who brought the Ethiopian church, and therefore the Israelites of Ethiopia, out of Egypt and from under the Coptic church of Egypt. It goes on to say, to the end that he should not multiply horses. Now, in this particular command, there seems to be something connected with getting horses, right? And according to the context of the time, right, going way back, we're connecting it with the revelation of Haile Selassie, but going way back to the original context, right, with getting horses to Egypt. It's almost like you're not to do business that way. You already been there, done that. Keep moving forward. Keep it pushing. But there was something about getting horses, right, from Egypt. For as much as Yahweh have said to you, y'all shall henceforth return no more that way, which kind of implies that there would be a return, even spiritually, to the city spiritually, Sodom and Egypt, in another way, but no more return that way. Verse 17, neither shall he multiply wives to himself. A particular feature, right, of the King of Kings of Ethiopia, Kedemah Haile Selassie, is that he was the husband, of one wife, right? Now, of course, this word says that he shall not multiply wives himself. One can say, well, what does that mean? One only, two more, not to do what Solomon did? Check. But let's go on. That his heart, but this is the reason why, that his heart turned not away. So definitely we can see Solomon, King Solomon doing that. And the queen of the south, right, Malka Shava, the queen of Sheba, she was not one of those. She was not one of those. The difference between the queen of Sheba, right, the queen of the south, and the other women and wives of Solomon is that she was turning her heart to the way of Yahweh Elohim, right, to Xavier, the sustainer, the God of Israel, while the other women were political marriages or political conveniences, and Solomon gave indulgence to have them build places of worship, even in the holy city. And this caused much corruption. That his heart turned not away, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. Notice it says, not that he would not have silver and gold, but he should not greatly multiply to himself. Have that which is sufficient. But going on, verse 18, and it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom. Understand the language. There's a kingdom and there's a what of a kingdom? The throne of the kingdom. When he shall sit upon the throne of the kingdom, be seated, be enthroned, in other words, that he shall write him a copy of this Torah, a copy of this instruction in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Kohanim, Halloween, the priests, the Levites, verse 19, and it shall be with him. This scripture. So here's saying that when the Israelites have a king, that these are the things the king should do, and these are the king should not do. One of the things the king should do when he sits upon the throne of his kingdom is to write him a copy of this Torah in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. Now, this is an interesting thing. It seems like a minor thing. It's liku batalua. Because what we find is that when we look at kings just in the world, right, the only kings that really promoted the Bible in the world, right, is King James of England, the 1611 version, and the King of Kings of Ethiopia, that actually caused to be written out of the ancient scrolls. And the connection with Ethiopia is that not only with the tribes, remnant tribes of Israel, do we have historical and actual links, but we also have a link with the priests. Remember with the ark, and remember with the son of David had a son named Solomon. Solomon had a son named David that renewed the kingdom of David in the tops of the mountains. That's what connects with Psalm 87, verse 4. With Cush, with Ethiopia, this was born there. The Hebrew is very specific that this, speaking of this man, it doesn't say man, but it says this was born there. Why does it single out a man, a particular man being born there? This man did exactly what is written here. Now, I can't say that David didn't do it, because we read the Psalms of David, and David is very much acquainted at a high level, right, with Torah. We can see it throughout David's Psalms. That's why for many of the Yehudi from before, the Psalms was considered to be likened to the Torah. One of the reasons why Yeshua says, is it not written in your law? And what did he quote? He quoted the Psalms of David. But this point right here is a very significant point in the prophetic fulfillment that we see manifest. That's manifest to I and I, called children faithful Rastafari, concerning Kadamar Haile Selassie. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear, to reverence Yahweh Elohayo, Jehovah his Elohim, to keep all the words of this Torah and these statutes, to do them. Verse 20, to seal it up, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left hand, to the end fulfillment, that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Yisrael. And it's another footer as well, but an important footer. On that day, November 2nd, in the acceptable year of the Lord, 1930, when the Rastafari, Haile Selassie, was anointed and crowned, one of the titles crowned was Melke Yisrael, or in the Amharic was Negusa Israel, Negusa Israel, the Israel Negus, the king of Israel. Now, what's significant about this is that it's 1930, all right? Nearly 18 years before the United Nations and the Gentiles, the nations, the Goyim, the nations, before they did what they did with the state of Israel. I want you to note that, you know. Did anybody know a state of Israel was coming in 1930? Did anybody object, right, when he was anointed, right, even by those priests that have a direct connection with the priests and the Levites, right, when he was anointed and crowned king of Israel? So I point that out because these are significant facts that the enemies, right, the enemies will like to suppress, right, or wouldn't like you to know, to see what has been fulfilled, so you can get a true comprehension of, you know, the times, the true times, and the true law. So with that being said, right there, brothers and sisters, we are in the count of the Omer. All of this was to illuminate more on the Omer count and the connection of this count from the resurrection day of Yeshua, the Messiah, which was the same day of the offering of the first fruits, right? That we get to Leviticus chapter 23 at verse 15. This is what we're counting up to. So we've completed the first of the 3 times. And with that first of the 3 times, 3 feasts have been fulfilled: Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. And now from first fruits, from that morrow after the Shabbat, the first day of the week, the Shavuot, which is called Sunday by the Gentiles and the first day by us, there was to be a count of 7 Shabbats complete. Here's where we go. Leviticus 23, verse 15. The Feast of Jehovah, this is now the 4th. So actually, as Passover fulfills, we're out of that holy season, but there's still a count and accountability we are to do that will bring us to the 4th of the 7 feasts, right? And the 2nd of the 3 times. And this 4th of the 7 feasts and the 2nd of the 3 times is known as harvest or weeks, the Feast of Weeks. The proper Hebrew name is like the Feast of Weeks, but often it is called harvest because when the full harvest comes. And in the New Covenant times, it is known as Pentecost, right? So here we have the wave loaves representing the church, the called out assembly of the Yehudim at Pentecost, which represents the 50 days after the resurrection of Messiah Yeshua, which represents the 50 days after the offering of the first fruits during the Passover season. And here's what it reads, verse 15. And ye shall count to you from the morrow after the Sabbath. So highlight that right there, the language. The morrow after the Sabbath. So first fruits offered on the morrow after Sabbath. And then we are to count from that morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that y'all brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Shabbats shall be complete. Here's how we know it is weekly Sabbaths. All right, that's why the first fruit occurs, right? It's in the connection with a weekly Sabbath and not the feast festival Sabbath, as some other Yehudi, some other Jews, say, right? But the true way is the weekly Sabbath. So 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Verse 16, even to the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath. So once again, we get morrow after the Sabbath to count to the morrow after the 7th Sabbath. Basic math here. Shall y'all number 50 days, and y'all shall offer a new meal offering, grain offering to Yahweh. See, it's called a meal offering. King James versions and other versions, King James call it a meat offering. But it's meat in the Old English sense of meat. Meat in the Old English sense of meat meant meal. But directly, the meat offering is grain. It's grain. I want to emphasize this here. See how language can be tricky? Why we need to study to show ourselves approved? Because one will see meat offering and will swear there must be meat, to say flesh, that is in it. But the meat offering was the mincha, was the meal offering, literally the grain offering to Yahweh, right? And what's also interesting is that during Passover, it's strictly unleavened bread. But as we count the growth of the crop, so to speak, right, we are counting up to a point in time where we have to bring another offering, right, for the 4th of the 7 feasts, for harvest, Shavuot, for the Feast of Weeks, and that must be leaven. There must be leaven. Verse 17, y'all shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. So basically, when we come to this time, just in the context of what's in the scripture, as the Israelites, as the wheat crop would grow, and over the next, say, 50 days or so, right? Coming up to that time, ones would basically make 2 loaves of bread. Now, it's interesting, these 2 loaves of bread in traditional, we say, Judaism, going back even before the modern Jews. So they basically copy and continue some things that the original ones were already doing, right? But here's the point about this, that usually on the Sabbath table, right, when the family comes together and the woman, the mother, the honorable woman of the house says that blessing and they all sit down to sup the sup, there are 2 breads, 2 like loaves of bread, right? And this here connects with this particular feast, because before this time, right, before this time, as it says here in Leviticus, the verse before, it says, and y'all shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering to your Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Because the principle is this. First, we have to let the crops grow. Then after it grows, we're commanded to bring an offering, according to what we have in Leviticus, commanded to bring an offering, right? And therefore, before we could enjoy it for ourselves, first we must thank the landlord, right, for what he has given us, right? In other words, first we have to pay the landlord, pay that respect, that honor by bringing, as it says, y'all shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. 2/10 deals is pointing out the weight of it. They shall be of fine flour. You see the offering, the mincha that's being brought? These 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals, and they shall be of fine flour. That means that as the wheat grows, there's a process. Do you know about the making of bread? The making of bread, one of the most interesting things studies was going through how bread is really made, the process, and then recognizing that when bread is made and bread was made, it's a community effort. You know how many hands to get a, bread making operation from the crop in the land, to bread in everybody's home and in everybody's mouth that want to eat bread. Do you know the process to, first of all, the wheat has to grow. Then you have to make the wheat into flour, right? And then the whole baking process. And then if we put it even into modern times, the delivery process, it's a really amazing thing. It's something so simple, so biblical, so ancient. People did it. But nowadays, we are out of the knowledge, the practice of doing this. You see, if we would start to reclaim these basic little things and understand that even behind the spiritual significance of what we have in the Torah is such a practical application. Because right now, if we want bread, what you going to do? You're going to go to the store. But suppose the shelves are empty. Well, we're not growing no food. Oh, my God. So we can't expect no wheat to be growing and then change it into flour. You see where we're at? This is why, study to shew ourselves approved. So it says right here that these two wave loaves, they shall be baking with leaven. Let's note that right there. Because I've heard some people talk about Passover and leavened bread and how what leaven represents. And if you listen to them, you'll never eat no bread with no yeast in it again. You will begin to think that the bread with the yeast in it is evil in the sense that Israelites were not supposed to eat no leavened bread at no time. No, it's about what goes on in its proper time and season. It's about the reason for the season. All right. In the Passover season, the point, principle, no leaven. The unleavened bread days, no leaven. Right. To even such a point that the Israelites, no leaven was to be seen in amongst them. They would sweep the leaven from their homes and burn it and purge out all leaven. And then as the new crop is growing, you see the cycle, the cyclic nature of it, the new crop is growing. Wheat is coming along, flour is coming along, new bread is coming along, and it says they are the first fruits to Yahweh, to Jehovah. This is why in regular Sabbath keeping and families going back, several thousand years, even the modern, many of the Torah observant Jews still do this to this day. When a family come together, there would be 2 loaves of bread on that Erev Tov, that Sabbath Eve table, right? Those 2 loaves of bread, right? It is symbolic of this point in the season and the time. Because by the time we get to the point that our crops are growing, we got flour there, this is where we have the new lump, as it says concerning Christ, right? That new lump, all the old things are purged out, right? And then there's further offerings that are offered. I'm going to pause right here on this right here because the main significance is the reason for the season. We're fully out of, we could say, the Passover season to adopt and adapt what's in the New Testament concerning Pentecost, right? When it says, and when Pentecost was fully come. So Passover, right? Resurrection, even of Moshiach, the first fruit, that has fully come for us here in this season, this time. And we're counting 7 Shabbats complete, right, from the May 5th, from that day that we also know is the return of the King, 5 years to the very, day, 5 years to that day, May 5th, 1936 to May 5th, 1941. And yes, there's a mystic, there's a significance right there. But here, brothers and sisters and brothers, let's chant a psalm. Give thanks and praise right here. We have Psalm 48, which is the evening psalm for the second day of the Shabuah. That is called the first day of the working week, Monday. But Hebraically, from the Torah-wise, this is the second day of the Shabuah. And here is the psalm. Today's daily psalm is Psalm 90. The evening psalm right here is Psalm 48.
Rastafari, Africa is a must. So nobody post now cross. You have to jump on this bus. Zion born, right?
Psalm 48.
Mizmor Memchet, Shir Mizmor Livne Korah.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together, they saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgment. Walk about Zion and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, 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 forever.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בעיר אלוהינו הר קודשו. יפה נוף משוש כל הארץ, הר ציון ירכתי צפון, קריית מלך רב. אלוהים בארמנותיה נודע למשגב, כי הנה המלכים נועדו, עברו יחדיו. המה ראו כן תמהו, נבהלו נחפזו. רעדה אחזתם שם, חיל כיולדה. ברוח קדים תשבר אוניות תרשיש. כאשר שמענו כן ראינו, בעיר אדוני צבאות, בעיר אלוהינו. אלוהים יכונניה עד עולם סלע. דימינו אלוהים חסדך בקרב היכליך. כשמך אלוהים כן תהילתך על כתבי ארץ, צדק מלאה ימינך. ישמח הר ציון, תגלנה בנות יהודה למען משפטיך. שובו ציון והקיפוה, ספרו מגדליה. שיטו לבכם לחילה, פסגו ארמנותיה. למען תספרו לדור אחרון, כי זה אלוהים אלוהינו עולם ועד, הוא ינהגנו על מות.
The Ark of Covenant is supposedly somewhere in Ethiopia. That's why we went into Somalia, because Ethiopia is next to Somalia. For all you folks who don't know this,
Yes, yes, yes. For the cock crows. Right, what it says? Twice, yeah. Well, right there. Here, we had Kedoshim. What is Kedoshim? Somebody say it just in the usual, way of speaking. Kedoshim. And in the Hebrew, that's a special K, really a Q. Kedoshim from the Kadash. Kadash, to be set apart. Kadash. The Kedoshim are the holy ones holy. Kedoshim. So here we in Kedoshim. Here we pick up with Leviticus chapter 19, verse 1 to chapter 20, verse 27, for this 30th sabbatical study for this Shabbat Strong. Interesting, the Haftarah, the Haftarah, which is the prophet's reading, the Nabim, modern Hebrew to say Navim, the Nabim, the prophet's reading is Amos is Amos chapter 9, verse 7 to verse 15, Chabarim. And we also have the Brit Chadasha. What is the Brit Chadasha? The renewed covenant reading, called the New Covenant reading. 1 Peter chapter 1, focus verses 13 to verse 16. And 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 to 20. Verses 9 to 20. I think we had shared this before, but just to share this again, there is a traditional baraka, the la'asok, the divrei Torah, blessing, right here. We touched on some of the details of it before, but just briefly here. The ancient custom is to recite a baraka, reciting blessings, right? Speaking out words, sound power. There's a blessing before engaging in the study of Torah, Talmud Torah. Don't confuse the operative word study or learning with many kinds of studies and learning. So that people talk about the Talmud, it's called the Bavli Talmud. That's a particular type of compendium of ancient, scholars and reasonings about various different things. Some good, some bad, some otherwise, right? But the general word Talmud means study. So Talmud Torah is the study of Torah, the study. So it's an operative word. Give us the teaching of His Majesty. So in the following baraka, there's the word la'asok. That means to engage or to immerse oneself. That comes from the Hebrew, root word that has a sense of busy, to be busy. So this baraka is about busying ourselves, engaging and immersing ourselves in Talmud Torah, in the study of Torah, the study of God's directions, instructions, we say His word, but specifically Torah. Taking heed of Yahweh Elohim's, our Elohim's instruction in our lives. As the verse from the Psalm 119:97 says, Ma ahabti, oh how I love, Ma ahabti Torateka, Ma ahabti Torateka. Oh, how I love your Torah, how I love thy instruction, thy, speaking to he who be thy, male instruction, speaking of Jah's instruction. Ma habti Torateka, kol hayom hi sichati, kol hayom, all the day, he is she, because Torah, Hebraically, right, is feminine. It's likened to even the mother, even in the Proverbs of Solomon, Mishlei, Shlomo, Proverbs 1 and 8. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, forsake not the Torah, the law of thy mother. So it's interesting. We said, Ma ahabti, how I love Torah teka, the I speaking to the male, speaking directly to he, thy Torah, right? Kol hayom, for all the day, he, she that belongs to he. So the she is his instruction that belongs to he, even he who be. Ma ahabti Torateka. Kol hayom, he, sichati. She is sichati. She is my siyach. Siyach is like a meditation, meditation. Sichati is my meditation. She is my meditation. Yah, he who be's instruction. She is my meditation, my meditation all the day. Ma ahabti Torateka, kol hayom hi sichati. This here brings us to the baraka here, before we move forward. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotayo v'tziwanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed art thou, O he who be our Elohim. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, King of the universe. Some translate it as that. It can also be brought out as Melech HaOlam, eternal King. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu, Melech HaOlam. Asher, Asher, the one who, that which, the one who, Asher Kideshanu, the one who Kideshanu, who has sanctified, made us Kadash, as if Kedoshim here, Kideshanu, the one who has set us apart, to say sanctified, made holy us, but the literal sense, because make holy, what does make holy really mean? You know, what does sanctify really mean? The sense of the Kadash root is to set apart. So he who be, our Elohim, our eternal King, he is the one who has set us apart. Kedeshanu, b'mitzvotayo, b'mitzvotav, b'mitzvotayo, by way of his mitzvot, by way of his commandments, his affirmative, his to-dos and his not to-dos. This is how he sets us apart. So there's a practical application to being holy. Not, well, I feel holy. No, it's if I keep his commands, right? This is how he's setting I and I apart. Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotayu with and siwanu v'sivanu with siwanu with and siwanu, and has commanded us with siwanu la asok to engross ourselves, to immerse ourselves, to la asok to busy ourselves, the divrei Torah, in the divrei, the words of Torah, to engross, immerse ourselves in the words of instruction, of his directions, his instruction. Once again, full of full. Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotayu with siwanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. So that's the baraka right there. You know, a little bit more on that, but let's keep it pushing, moving forward right here. What do we have right here? So here with this Torah reading and feeding, right? The Torah reading and feeding known as Kedoshim, Parshat Kedoshim. It begins with the call for the Bnei Yisrael, for the sons of Israel, to be Kadosh. Now, Kadosh, usually speaking of a singular one, is Kadosh. Like singular man, Kadosh. Kedoshim is holy ones. So here is the call. Many are called, right? Here is the call, right, for and to the Bnei Yisrael, to the sons of Israel, to be set apart, right? To be Kadosh. Now, we must be Kadosh, or plural sense of us collectively together, Kedoshim, as Yahuwah Eloheinu, as our Elohim, our Father, as he is set apart. So as he is holy, we are to be holy, right? As he is set apart, we are to be set apart. So for Shabbat Kedoshim, it begins the call for the sons of Israel, the Bnei Yisrael, the Israelites, to be Kedoshim, on account of their relationship. So what we have here is not religion in the Western Gentile, not Latin religion, right? Since people say, religion means religio. Yeah, it does, Latin religion. No, we're talking about relationship. So on account of their relationship with, right, the Kedosh Yisrael. Who is the Kedosh Yisrael? The Kedosh Yisrael, the one who is Kadosh, 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 is the Holy One of Yisrael. So when we say Kadosh Yisrael, is say the Holy One of Israel. So this reading and feeding sabbatical manna here for this 7 right here, this portion therefore focuses on defining, giving a definition, defining a, for lack of a better phraseology, quote, holiness code, end quote. So here, defining a holiness, a set apart code. All right, you hear a lot of I people, oh, we got to be on code. See, these other people, they on code. We got to be on code. Well, yes, sir, I was called to be on code. Even right here, the study of sabbatical study, Kedoshim, It focuses on defining a holiness code that contains more commandments, more mitzvot, more imperatives, that which thou shalt do and thou shalt not do. See, the commandments are in two classes. There's the positive commands, ta'aseh, do. If I say ta'aseh, do. I speaking to somebody and command them do, ta'aseh, and lo ta'aseh, and don't do. So we have the positive commandments, the ta'aseh, that which is to be done, and the lo ta'aseh, not to be done. So we have more commandments regarding practical ethics, practical morality and practice, ethics and practice regarding practical ethics than any other portion, any other reading, any other mana here of HaTorah. So that means here in Kedoshim, we have more commandments that regard the practical ethics, the ethics in practice, right, than any other portion, reading and feeding of HaTorah. See, it begins with Yahweh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, blessed be the name, saying to Moses, you, or rather, y'all shall be holy, Kedoshim, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am Kadosh. So as I am Kadosh, y'all all together as one are to be Kedoshim. Why daber Yahweh el Moshe leimor? Daber el kol edat bnei Yisrael. Ve'amarta eleihem. Kedoshim tehiyu. Ki kadosh ani Yahweh Eloheikem. Let's break down and build right here. So here we have Leviticus chapter 19, verses 1 and 2. What we often call the Hebrew first words right here. These are the Hebrew first words right here. Leviticus chapter 19, verses 1 to 2. And that key first word is Kedoshim, that distinctive word here for this Torah reading and feeding. But it begins here, and the Lord spake or spoke to Moses, saying, Wa yedaber Yahuwah el Moshe leimor. Le'emor. Why daber Yahweh el Moshe le'emor. Speak to all the congregation of the sons of Yisrael, of the sons of Israel, and say to them, Dabir is a command to speak. Dabir, like you're speaking to a man, Dabir, speak. Somebody say, yo, I got something to say. Dabir, speak on it. Like you say, speak on it. Dabir, il call adat. To all call adat. Some will point as adat, more nuanced, idat. What is the idat? It is the congregation in the sense of witness, right? Ed, like a witness. So to all the witnessers, which is the congregation, Bnei Yisrael, of the sons of Israel. So Bnei Yisrael is specifically speaking to the sons of Israel. Not that this is not to, the woman and the children, of course, but to whom more is given, more is required. Daber il kol edat Bnei Yisrael. We and amarta, and amarta, and say, or like say to them. It's like say Elohim to them. We amarta Elohim, and say, you male, say, speaking to Moshe, Elohim to them. Kedoshim, here we go right there. Kedoshim, set apart ones. Kedoshim, holy ones. Kedoshim, sanctified ones. Practical application translation, set apart ones. Kedoshim, tihiyu. Y'all, you all to become. Tihiyu. Holy ones, set apart ones, y'all are to be. Kedoshim, tihiyu. ki, for, or because, in the sense of because, ki, for, kadosh, kadosh, set apart one. Holy ones, y'all to be, set apart ones, y'all to be, for set apart one, holy one, ani, I, myself, ki kadosh ani, Yahuwah, I, he who be, who he be, Elohim, Yo Elohim, Almighty power. So right here, this is the ground. This is the groundation right here for Kedoshim. So once again, full. Why daber Yahuwah el Moshe leimor, daber illa kol edat b'nei Yisrael. U'amarta leihem, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani, Yahuwah Elohim. This brings us to the question of, what is holiness? What is holiness? There's a note in the Schofield Study Bible. That's a very, very good note. It says that, I think it's it might be even in this section. Let's see if we just bring this up. Maybe it's right here. But it's a very good note. It says that if, like, the words were to be consistently translated, a lot of confusion around what holy is would be avoided. In other words, the same word holy sometimes is translated as sanctified over here. Other places it's translated a little different, consecrated, and therefore there becomes a lot of kind of like blur on what holy really means, because the word is not always consistently translated, right, in the translations that we get coming down to the English. When I find that section, I'll point it out, I'll read it and share it with you all. It was one of the footnotes, but I thought that was a very important footnote. I had learned that by study experience, but when I saw that there, I said, wow, a lot of ones could learn that even from that there, because you'll read in one place, it will say sanctified. In the next place, it would say holy, and there's a couple of other terms that are also used. I'm still looking for that quote right there. I think I've shared it before, but the question here with Kedoshim is, what is holy? I mean, what does holy mean? It sounds religious, but what does it mean? I mean, what does it mean in an operative sense? I got it. It was actually in Exodus chapter 28, Schofield Study Bible, first edition. The old Schofield Study Bible, preferably. There's a footnote here where it says Kodesh. Kodesh, it says set apart, quote unquote, for God. So Kodesh from the Hebrew is set apart for Elohim. It's translated as holy. In fact, in this chapter 28, Exodus chapter 28, King James Version, it's translated in verse 2 as holy. In verse 3 as consecrate. Often it's translated as sanctify. So in one translation from the Hebrew in Exodus 28, in verse 2, it's translated as holy, and in verse 3 as consecrate. You see where some confusion can come in? And often it's translated in the King James Version, other English translation, as sanctify, right? And then this is the note right here. It says, this is always the fundamental idea of a holy, consecrated, separated, or sanctified person or thing, namely as something or someone set apart for Elohim. This brings out a good Hebrew context of it. So the real sense, the practical sense, is set apart. Then they say this in the close right here of this footnote: infinite confusion would have been spared the reader if Kodesh from the Kadash root had been uniformly translated as set apart. So in the places where we have holy, consecrate, sanctify, and the underlying word is the Kadash, if it had been translated as set apart, the sense of it would make sense. For example, for this Torah reading and feeding, when it says, with Amarta and Lehem, what will you say to them? Kedoshim Tihiyu, y'all are to be set apart ones. Ki, for, because Kadosh, set apart one, Ani Yahuwah Elohim. he who be, Yod Elohim. As we said, it's about relationship. See, the confusion comes in the counterfeit, the Western Gentile, so-called religion sense, and the Latin religion sense, and the confusion of tongue sense, which collectively can be called the Babel sense, Babel, Babylon, even spiritually, right? So what is holiness? In Hebrew, the word kedusha. For the word holiness, in that sense of the English corresponding with the equivalent Hebrew sense, from the kadash is the root. Kedusha is holiness. Often translated as meaning to sanctify, but more better, set apartness. Kedusha, often as holiness, meaning to sanctify, better understood and acted on as set apartness. That's why that baraka, in the blessing where it says that he who be asher kedishanu b'mitzvotayo, he be the one who has set us apart kedishanu b'mitzvotayo, by way of his commandments. In other words, he gives us commands, we act on the commands, we are set apart. We are distinguished, we are set apart. And in the operative sense, we are holy. You see, it's not like people do in religion and they're holy, I go to church a lot, or I do this. No, none of that is. It's really about, do you do what daddy says? Yeah, I know you love daddy, but do you follow his instructions? You know, do you even try? So the word kedusha means set apartness. Now there's other Hebrew words, right? Biblical Hebrew words that come from this root, right? The kadash, kadasha, kadash. That's the root sense, which in the language means he set something apart. But the words now that include this root is kadosh, kadosh, as used in Leviticus chapter 19 at verse 2, kadosh, right? In fact, even in that theophany, I think it's in Yeshayahu, Isaiah the prophet, Isaiah, when he had that, you know, he heard the heavenly celestial beings, right? He heard them say, Kadosh, 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 3 times. Holy, 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 right? Kadosh means set apart. Kiddush, Kiddush. What is the Kiddush? Kiddush, Hebraically, Judaically, is when the wine is sanctified. You know, like when it says when Yeshua on the Passover had given the cup and he said the blessing. You remember when Yeshua, after he was risen, I think it's in Luke's gospel, and he caught those on the Emmaus road who were somewhat despondent because they were doubting whether Yeshua was really the Moshiach, and then Yeshua came in disguise and was trotting with them right there. And then they invited him to have sup since it was getting late. And that was only, you know, that's proper Hebrew, practical, ethical, you know, man is, so he came in and they still didn't recognize him while he was reasoning with them, right? And then he had said the blessing. And the scripture says that then their eyes was open when he said the baraka. But notice that there are these barakas, for these blessings that sanctify bread, that sanctify wine, but the kiddush is namely for the sanctifying the wine. You know, it's like a blessing to sanctify the chalice, the cup. We have kaddish. What is kaddish? Kaddish is sanctifying the name, the Hashem, sanctifying the name. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem. The Holy One, blessed be He, blessed be the name. The Kaddish is when we sanctify, we set apart the name. We have Kiddushin, Kiddushin, Kiddushin. What is Kiddushin? Kiddushin is the ring ceremony at a Hebraic and a Yehudi Judaic marriage, the Kiddushin, and so on. So we get the sense of how this word from the Kadash, the root sense, right? And to its various applicative senses. So this is why I say to some of the other Hebrews, vowels are very important. You know, the vowels are very important. When we start to really learn, we really get to, there's a science to it. You know, why, what vowels appear where, right? It helps with past, present, future, right? Whether someone is doing an action to someone else, whether the action is being done on them. It's very interesting. You know, without the vowels, all you have is just a bunch of Hebrew letters. And Hebrew has more than just 3 vowels. Hebrew has the 7 vowels. But there's the kadosh, holy, set apart, like a person being kadosh, like he who be being kadosh, right? The Hebrew Trinity, the Holy Trinity, kadosh, 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 right? We have the kedush, sanctifying the wine. We have the kadish, sanctifying the Hashem, ha-kadosh, baruch hu, baruch Hashem. We have the kedushim, the ring ceremony at a marriage. Now, kadosh, it connotates, in a sense, the sphere, the cipher of the sacred that is radically separate from all that is ukful or sinful or falls short or misses the mark or is contrary to his direction, instruction, and profane and common. As such, it is lofty and elevated. All right, it's lofty and elevated. I'm going to point to a couple of verses, so one-to-one take down these verses, like Isaiah 57:15. We'll see to go over it, right? Beyond all comparison and utterly unique in the sense of Isaiah 40:25, entirely righteous, Isaiah 5:16, glorious and awesome and awe-inspiring, and Psalm 99:3, full of light and power, Yeshaya, Isaiah 10:7, and is chosen and favored, both chosen and favored as Ha-Elohim, as Elohim's own, as God's own. Ezekiel 22:26. Indeed, Kedusha, holiness or set apartness, is a synonym. It's like a word, a like word for Yahweh Atzmo, for he who he be himself. This is why we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, the Kadosh, the set apart one, Baruch, blessed Hu, he, blessed be he, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the idea of the Kadosh, the idea of the set apart or holy, therefore it implies a differentiation, Remember what he says elsewhere in the Torah, it says that they teach the people the difference between the holy and the profane, between the clean and the unclean, differentiation. The realm of the holy, the Kadosh, is entirely set apart from the common, the profane, the habitual. The holy is singular, right? The set apart or inspiring. And even as one of the attributes of Yahweh is awesome or inspiring or even terrible, right? And dreadful, right? We have Nehemiah 1:5. We have Psalm 68:35. So as the Holy One, HaKadosh, 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 Ha-Elohim, Ha-Elohim, the true good, the true God, is utterly unique, distinct, sacred, and, quote, set apart as the only one of its kind, if we can even dare say kind, right? But the only one. He alone is worthy of true worship and adoration. Why? Since he alone is peerless, without rival, and stands in relation to the world, right, to the creation, as the creator and Lord, master, boss. Yes, only Ha-Adon is infinitely and eternally other, right? Known to himself, revealed to Moshe, known to himself as Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh. I am, I be, I become Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh. That which I become, I be. Exodus 3:15. So Kedusha, set apartness then, what does it imply, Chaverim? It implies more than an abstract or an indifferent, because some people deal with metaphysics, but it's a kind of an indifferent metaphysics, right? But it's more than just an abstract or a so-called indifferent metaphysical separation, as is suggested by various forms of what is called dualism, right? We burn out of dualism. Even the Israelites of Ethiopia, the true church and the professing church, we say miaphysites, that often falsely is called monophysite, miaphysite, right? That oneness. In other words, some believe, right, that, for example, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, has two natures. The Catholics and some of the other Orthodox, they say sometime he is man, sometime he is God, all right? But the Miaphysites, and talking about the true church and the professing church, the Ethiopian church, the church of he who had the keys, the great King David, and the Oriental, the sister churches, they had the true conception coming out of that oneness in the Hebrew, right, that his divinity and his humanity is one, because in the beginning, what did he say? Let us make man in our image after our likeness. The fact that man is the way man is today is not because of he who he be, is because of man's choice. Man's fall created this bipolarism or dualism, but rather the separation, right, of Yahweh Eloheinu from that which is mundane, right? Chulin, the chulin, banal, common, and even ra'ah, even evil. In other words, holiness, set apartness, the implication of set apartness, it implies an absolute, from a Hebraic perspective, an absolute moral goodness. As Rastafari would say, moral theocracy, right? A moral goodness and perfection. It is impossible that HaKadosh, the Holy One, could condone chet, sin, akri, falling short, missing the mark, since this would negate the distinction between the sacred, the set apart, and the profane. And thereby, that would undermine the nature of kedusha, of set apartness in itself, right? The holy is in opposition to the profane, and therefore Yahweh, he who he be, must hate or repulse, and oppose that which violates the sacred, the holy, the set apart, because he himself at his core, it's like a magnet. When the magnets repel, you could put the magnets together, you could force the magnets together, but they're going to continually repel because it is according to its nature, right? Indeed, one of the first acts of Yahweh, of Jehovah in the created order that we read of in Bereshit, in Genesis, was the separation of the light, some say the heavenly light, but the light from the darkness, or the illumination from the disillumined. We have this recorded in Genesis 1 and 4. Genesis 1 and 4. Vayar Elohim et haor kitob, vayabdel Elohim bein haor ubein hachoshek. And Elohim saw, Vayar Elohim, Wa and Yar Elohim, and he seeing Elohim, and Elohim saw, Vayar Elohim, that the light was good. Vayar Elohim et haor, et, in this context here, is the definite object marker of the verb. So what did he see? He saw haor, et haor. Vayar Elohim et haor. He saw the light. Ki tob, ki, for, because, tob, for good, because it was good. He saw that the light was good. Vayabdel, wa yavdel, yavdel, yabdele, yabdel, why yabdel, and yabdel, and he separated. Wa and yabdel, right? From badal, to separate. Wayabdel, and he separated, right? And Elohim separated. Wayabdel Elohim, and Elohim Yabdel separated. Here's check out the Hebrew. Bain, Bain. Bain is between, distinguishing, between, right? Bain, between Haor, the light, the or, and Bain, between Ha, the Choshek, the darkness, Choshek. So this is very interesting because we're talking about the Bain. You know, even Pesach, Passover, is said to occur between the evenings. Here he separated Bain Haor Ubain HaChoshek. He separated between, he's distinguished, right? Because he bana, he was able to bain. Because he understand, he was able to distinguish. You see, understanding, which is connected to the same Hebrew root sense of distinguishing. In order to really understand something, you have to be able to distinguish between it. If you can't distinguish between it, then you really don't understand it. Wayared Elohim et haor kitob. Wayabdel Elohim bein haor ubein hachoshek. So the verb, right, wa and Yabdel. The verb, it suggests that the realm of the holy, the set apart, you can say the kadosh, represented by the light, the divine light, haor, by the or. The word or in the Hebrew is light. Ha is a definite article to say the light. Haor. The light is conceptually distinct from the world with its imperfection, its fallenness, though it could manifest itself within the world. Haor is distinct from the world in its present state with its imperfection, though Haor, the light, could and can and does manifest itself within the world as long as its integrity was strictly maintained. In practical terms relating to human beings, I paused there because I was thinking about the godless and creeping coup. And once I say, well, why did it have to end like that? It's the same thing with the light, what we're saying about the light right here, right? Or the light is completely separate from the world with its imperfection, but it can manifest itself in the world as long as its integrity, the integrity of Haor, is strictly maintained. In practical terms relating to human beings and their and our relation to Elohim, holiness, Kedusha, set apartness, it describes a state of consecration, so to speak, produced by ethical and moral separation from profane cult and profane culture. According to certain of the Yehudi Midrash, it is said, before Ones and Ones was born, Yahuwah, Jehovah, had called your soul to appear before him and said, after you are born, become a tzaddik, a righteous person. Don't become a rasha, a defiant person, that is to say, a wicked person. Then he brought you into the world, but he tested you by means of Yetzer Hara, the natural inclination to be bad and selfish in a bad way, right? To be evil, hurtful, harmful. Now, something very interesting right here. What was the point I had made? Okay, about the word tested. Because some will say, well, God doesn't test, neither is he tested. If you read the context of it, that would mean, so you're saying that the test that occurred with Abraham didn't happen when David talks about he's being tested. The fact is, in James, when it says that he doesn't test and cannot be tested, people forget the context, that he does not test with evil. He does not test with evil. He's testing you with whether you will bring forth the light, whether you will do good. You know what I mean? Because the light always shines, the darkness can't overcome or comprehend it. So there's a call to holiness right here. Kedusha. We're going to move forward right here, but just laying a groundation at this first, after the holy season, Kedusha. Because this is a good point, because there's always discussion about holy and what is holy, and people say they're holier than thou, and what does it really mean? You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of religious stuff where you hear the word holy and you see people doing church things and you think that's holy. Maybe to them, right? But the only thing that really is holy is what Yahuwah say is holy. You see, that's why I said this is about relationship. So the Israelites were in a covenant. They were in a relationship, right? This is for them. So just to even understand, okay, maybe we're not in that level of a covenant relationship with him, but shouldn't we try to understand what that was like? So there are various practical mitzvot, practical commandments that are given in this Torah reading and feeding at the 30th sabbatical study, Shabbat Strong, Kedoshim. Through those, a Yehudi Israelite is sanctified. So there's various practical commandments that are given in this Torah reading and feeding. And it's through that a Yehudi, we can say a Yehudi, a Judahite, or in an overall sense, an Israelite, was to be set apart, right? Set apart to be Kadosh and to be of those Kedoshim, set apart ones, and therefore to be fit, or rather, what's the word in Revelation? Worthy. To be worthy of and for and in a relationship with Yahuwah Eloheinu. Elohim is not only holy other, there's a sense that, well, Elohim, Yahuwah, the Elohim of Elohim, he is totally other, right? He's not only totally other, a holy other. In other words, what ones will say in modern kind of language, transcendent. All right, he's not only transcendent, but also he pervades all creation. In other words, he is immanent, right? And those who are called into his presence and to his face and his perception and his perspective must therefore be kadosh, set apart themselves. And what's interesting is that even Yeshua, Robbeinu Yeshua, says the same thing. Right? He says, be ye holy. He says, be ye perfect. He uses the term perfect, complete, without blemish, nothing more and nothing less, as our Father is. And then a lot of us have got into this Gentile custom. We repeat this over and over, right? We be saying things like, well, nobody's perfect, right? And it seems like nobody's working on it either. I like to say, well, I'm not perfect yet. Right? But, it's not for me to say where I'm perfect, but it's for me to perfect it, because otherwise, how am I keeping it? So how are you keeping it and then saying, well, nobody's perfect? You understand the kind of double negative right there, right? And it's something that we have picked up, it's something that we pick up from the world, right? And this is why we have to study to show ourselves approved. Now, Father may forgive us. We just say that in our ignorance. But now, do you understand this reasoning? Like when Christ said to the people, he said that if I had not come and spoken to you, you would have had no chet, no sin, no uckery, no falling short. But now I have spoken to you, you don't have any excuse. So think about it for yourself, that if we say we're in Moshiach and we say nobody's perfect, and, well, the Father is perfect, right? And the Master says we have to be perfect as he is, to be unblemished, In other words, this is all part of that set apartness. Right, but let's begin not from something like trying to be like God in the sense of the Antichrist, you know what I mean? But in the sense of the true Christ, according to the way, right, the anointed way, which is practical, right? Practical set apartness, practical set apartness, or kedusha, holiness. It results in what is known as sanctification, right? Obtained through the observance of mitzvot. Mitzvot, commandments. Modern Hebrew, they'll say mitzvot. Other pronunciation, mitzvot. These commandments include the mitzvot aseh, sounds like asher, right? Mitzvot aseh, commandment aseh, to do. Aseh, to do. commandment to do something, to do something. And we have the mitzvot lo ta'aseh, mitzvot lo ta'aseh, commandments to refrain or not to do something. In addition, we have chukim, the hooks, the statutes, the ordinances called chukim, right? Statutes. They are given that further separate the Yisraeli. Now, when I say Yisraeli, I say Israeli. People say, well, that's the state of Israel. Well, actually, in Hebrew, the term used for an individual Israelite is Yisraeli. I just want to point that out, you know? So what, they got some things right. We're going to deal with other things that are wrong. But first thing is what is right, and what is right is HaTorah. So in addition, there are also the statutes that often govern what one might call religious or spiritual observances, right? That are given that further separate the Yisraelim, the Israelites, from the customs and the profanity in Yahweh Eloheinu's sight of the surrounding nations, the Goy. In other words, it may not look bad in our sight. You say, hey, that's not bad. All right? But if Yahweh says, oh, that's bad, it's in his sight, you have to consider your relationship. Why, if you do, and why you do have your relationship. So there's 3 times in this Torah reading and feeding here for Kedoshim, holy ones, that the call to holiness is made. Did you know? There are 3 times. You know, that number 3, even the Hebrew Trinity is so interesting. Remember when they said to the one on the throne, they said it 3 times. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Right? So here we have in Kedoshim, the call to Kedusha is made 3 times. Firstly, in Leviticus 19:2, Kedoshim Tehiyu Ki Kadosh Ani Yahweh Elohim. Y'all shall be holy, Kedoshim Tehiyu, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am holy. Be holy. Kia Kadosh Ani Yahweh Elohim. Then in Leviticus 20:7, we have it written, consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I, the Lord your God. All right. Here's interesting, Leviticus 20:7. It says, Wehita kadishtem. Wehita kadishtem. Hita kadishtem is the hitpa'el sense. It's the reflexive sense in the Hebrew. It's like where one is doing an action on themselves. Like action is recursive on oneself. So in the sense of hita kadishtem. Hita kadishtem. Right? So the hita kadish, doing this act upon oneself, setting yourselves apart. So the translators often say like consecrate or something like that, consecrate yourselves, but set yourselves apart. You know, we are to do this work. We're hita kadishtem. We're hita kadishtem. We are to kadash ourselves. Hita kadishtem. Set yourselves apart, right? Therefore, and be holy. We're hiyitem, and your being, we're hiyitem kedoshim. We're hita kadishtem, separating, setting yourselves apart. We're hiyitem, and becoming kedoshim, set apart ones. Ki, because, or for, because, Ani, I, Yahweh, he who be, who he be, Elohim, your Elohim, because I, he who be, who he be, am your Elohim, because I, he who be, your Elohim. And we already know from the chapter before, right? He says, Ki Kadosh, for he is holy. Relationship, like to like. Midot keneged midot, measure for measure. The 3rd time is found in Leviticus chapter 20, at verse 26, where it reads, y'all shall be holy to me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have separated you from the peoples that y'all should be mine. Where he eatem, and y'all being li, of me, for me, Wehiyitem li, and y'all being for me or of me. Kedoshim, Kedoshim, set apart ones, holy ones, right? In a kind of a plural collective sense. Kedoshim. Ki, because or for Kadosh. Ki Kadosh, for Kadosh, for set apart, for holy one, set apart one. Kadosh Ani, for I am holy. Yahweh, he who be who he be. For I, he who be who he be, am holy. Wa Abdil, and I have separated you. See the Abdil, as we had in the earlier passage from Bereshit, remember Genesis 1 and 4, and Elohim saw the light, that the light was good, and Elohim separated the light from the darkness. Wayar Elohim et haor ki tov, wayabdel Elohim bein haor ubein hachoshek. So we have the same, the wayabdel, right? And he did it, wayabdel. And here we have the first person sense, wa and abdel, abdil, for I have separated you. So in the same way that the light has been separated from the darkness, the or from the choshek, is the same way here in Leviticus 20 and 26. He's saying to us, the Bnei Yisrael, that we are to become set apart to him. Wehiyitem li kedoshim. We're to become kedoshim to him. Reason, ki kadosh, for set apart, kadosh ani Yahweh, for he who be is holy. Relationship. Wa abdil, and I have separated etikem. Wa abdil etikem. Wa abdil etikem. For I have separated etikem, y'all mean from ha'amin, mean ha'amin. I've separated y'all from the peoples, the amin, the other people. See, Israel is an ha'am, amo, the people of Yisrael, and there are amin, other peoples. But he says, wa abdil etikem, I have separated y'all mean from ha'amin, from the peoples. Lihiyot, to be, to become li. Lihiyot li, to be, to become li. Of me, mine. To be, to become, for me, to become mine. So we have these three places, namely here, and in each of these places we have kedoshim. Leviticus 19 and 2, Leviticus 20 and 7, we have kedoshim, and Leviticus 20, 26, we have kedoshim. So, because Yahweh is kadosh, Yahweh kadosh, 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 because he is set apart, the Bnei Yisrael, right, the sons, the children, the Israelites could not be covenant and good covenant keeping, could not be in relationship with him if we engage in idolatrous and profane practices that go against his Torah and his commandments. Remember, he sets us apart by way of his commandments. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotayo. They were therefore, and we are therefore called to separate, right, from all that was not kadosh. And we have this in Leviticus chapter 11, verses 44 to 45. This has a point of reference right there. Leviticus chapter 11, verse, let's bring this out right here. Chapter 11, 44 to 45. For I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am Kadosh. You shall not defile yourselves with any swarming thing. You shall not defile yourself with any swarming thing that crawls on the ground. For I, Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Mitzrayim, to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be holy, Kedoshim, for I am Kadosh. I am holy. We're to be set apart because our relationship is with he who be who he be, who is set apart. So the call to holiness, set apartness, was based on the fact that they and we as Israelites, but they were Elohim's possession. Was his possession because he had separated them. And them entering into the covenant is a covenant of separation, separated them from the Goyim, from the nations. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26. So there's some practical, we're going to just go over just the highlights of some of the practical ethics. Honoring one's parents, father and mother, and keeping Shabbat, a practical application right there. Ish imo we abio. Tira'u. Mother and father, right? We are to reverence. We're at Shabtotai, and his Sabbath and my Sabbath. We're at Shabtotai Tishmoru, and we're to keep to guard his Sabbath. So keeping the Sabbath, for an example, we have honoring Yahweh by abstaining from idolatry, right? Or Avodah Zarah, from strange service of other people's, whatever, right? Leaving gleanings of your harvest for the poor. So us leaving, we sort of harvest our crops, but not make a full cleaning up every single piece of crop. No. In fact, they even said that when we grab a bunch of wheat and we're about to take it into the barn and some falls down, what? Leave it. Don't even do the corners. Leave the corners for the poor. This is one of the practical set apartness, practical holiness, leaving the gleanings of the harvest for the poor. Being truthful with others. In Leviticus 19:11, being truthful with others. You know, when it says you shall not steal, you shall not deal falsely, you shall not lie one to another. That means that Yisrael and I are not to steal from each other, not to deal falsely, like in bad business with each other, and not to lie, right, to one another or bear false witness to or concerning one another. You may not curse others. You shall not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. You know, sometimes we have to consider that one there in Leviticus 19:14, because sometimes we say, man, our people are so dumb, deaf, and blind. Okay, maybe we're acknowledging a fact, but let's get out of the trap of observing that fact and getting into the point that we're cursing, right, our people. I just want to point that out because this is one of the practical applications. You may not curse others specifically. You should not curse the deaf, right? So, okay, you told them so-and-so. They didn't get it at first. Try another way of telling them, right? Don't put a stumbling block. Okay, they can't see their way, but don't make things worse for them because they can't see what's before them, all right? You must judge others favorably. You must, in righteousness, you shall you judge your neighbor. Bisedek atishpota. Amiteka, your neighbor in righteousness, bisedek tishpot, you shall judge. Amiteka, you shall judge. In other words, the sense of it is judge others favorably, right? Judge others favorably, right? We must not slander others, where it says, y'all shall not be a talebearer, right? We're not to be a talebearer. You should not be a talebearer among your people. Gossip, chatty, patty, spreading things. If it's a judgment, then bring it to real judgment. But you must not slander others or talebearer, be a talebearer among your people. Gossip, chatty, patty. Oh, I got the tea. You know, you got to watch it, right? We must not ignore the sufferings of others. In Leviticus 19:16, another practical, something that we can really do, something that is on ground zero, on this earthly plane. You shall not stand idly by your neighbor's life when your neighbor's life is at stake. Or in the Hebrew it says lo ta'elmod al dam re'eka. You shall not stand upon or against the blood of your neighbor. You know, that the sense of that from the Hebrew idiom is stand idly by when something's happened to your brother, the blood of your neighbor. You know, not to be passive when we discover our neighbor's life is in danger, right? Put positively, we have a duty to stand for the truth, to defend the powerless, and to walk in righteousness, lifnei Yahweh. You must not, and we must not hate our brother. It says, you must not hate your brother in your heart. You must not hate your brother in your heart. It's interesting. I think this is the area where it says, we shall in any wise reprove our brother. Right? And what to hate your brother in your heart, this is the interesting one right here. I know we have a psalm right here, but let's just touch on this, because this is Elohim. This is holy ones. This is what it's all about, right? You know, knowing the truth. Leviticus 19 and 17, 19, 17 says this, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer chet, sin, ukri upon him. You know, sometimes you hear folks say, one so-and-so should know better. I ain't going to say nothing. I ain't going to say nothing. They should know it for themselves. Notice what Torah considers this right here. Here in the Torah, this is tantamount to hating your brother in your heart. All right? You see something's wrong, he's going wrong. Well, he just got to figure it out for himself. That's hating your brother. In other words, you want something to happen to him, right? So it's interesting how the command is here, Leviticus 19, 17, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart. In thy heart. All right? Lo tisna et achika. Lo tisna et achika. Your ach, achika, be levaveka. Be in levaveka, in your heart. But notice, the period is not really there. It's just the opening part of the phrase. Then it has a colon here in the translation. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. So if we suffer wrong upon like our brother, or you see something going bad, because there's that thing that I might have said it, y'all forgive I ain't going to say nothing. They should know about that. I ain't going to such and such, and you like watching. You just watching for it to catch up to him. That is the definition of hating your brother in your heart. That's why when it says, people say, like they have good hearts and everything, all right? They might think they do, but that's why it says that the heart is desperately wicked. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we think that by doing that, we're doing our brother a favor. Like, I ain't going to say nothing. I ain't going to say nothing. You know what I mean? But then we tell everybody else. Notice, we'll tell everybody else what's going on. That's talebearing. So see, these are practical things that can be put into practice. How about this one that a lot of ones love? 1918. All right? What a year. All right? Love your neighbor as yourself. All right? We'ahavta lere'eka kamoka ani Yahuwah. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am Jehovah. Notice what it says right there. How it rings in the Hebrew. It says, We'ahavta, and you shall love lere'eka, of your neighbor, ka, like moka, ka moka. You shall love your neighbor, ka moka, like yourself. You shall love your neighbor like yourself. Now, it's interesting because we kind of know that in the Brit Chadash and among Christianity, that's one that's very popular right there. But everything else is still in play. There's also avoiding certain admixtures, sha'atnez. What's sha'atnez? Sha'atnez, right? Avoiding admixtures, or the kilayim. Certain garments, mixed fabrics. Mixing certain fabrics. It's interesting because polyester. We'll have to put that away too, right? You know what I mean? But mix fabrics, and also mixing how we how we farm, and then also don't have an ox and a donkey. Can you imagine an ox and a donkey plowing your land? Which one is stronger? The ox usually is stronger. Can you imagine the damage that would do to the donkey? So certain mixtures, but this is like a mixture of certain fabrics, the sha'atnes, right, or kilayi. Also, there were forbidden fruits, so that which was orla. What is orla? It's certain forbidden fruits. In fact, when we plant a tree, right, we could not eat of any of the fruits of the tree for the first 3 years. And on the 4th year, all the fruit must either be brought to the temple, the tabernacle as a sacrifice, or sold, and the money given to the temple of the holy place. The first year's fruit of a tree, right, is kadosh, and that belongs exclusively to Yahweh. So that first fruit, so we plant something in his ground, in his land, and we're in covenant with him, that first fruit, right, is holy and belongs to him exclusively according to covenant. It is regarded as mukse. Mukse is separated from us. In other words, it's not ours no more. Yeah, we farmed the land. Yeah, we did this. Also, there are types of tithes. First, we give the landlord his. First, we kind of like, in a sense, pay our rent. Wonder why we got kicked out. We wasn't paying our rent. We was disrespecting the landlord's agreements for that land. Types of tithes. Do you know that there are at least 4 different types of tithes? We'll get into that in a little more detail as we forward. 4 different kind of tithes. Some make it seem like the tithe was all one thing. They obviously have not really studied to shew themselves approved, right? And there was also additional instructions for holy people, right? The eating of blood, strictly forbidden, was subject to karet, being cut off. Some interpret that to having your life cut short, right? Also the same penalty to engage in the practice of so-called omens or interpreting certain kind of ob. You know the word obia? Obia is a Hebrew term. Obia from oba, right? There was a place called Obot, right? Oba, obia. If you pronounce it like for W glide, you could have obia, but really it's the same word, right? Certain forbidden spiritualistic practices of other peoples, right? Both then and now, or performing any so-called witchcraft, yidoni, right? Being superstitious, right, is against ha-Torah, right? The Torah ha-emet, the Torah of truth. Being superstitious, right? You must show reverence, right, in the sanctuary, in the holy place of Yahweh, of Jehovah. And there's various more additional, right? We'll get into those additions. Some of y'all know it. Some things are kind of focused on more than other things, but hopefully we get into a full of all things. Like we are to respect or honor the elderly, and especially the scholars of Yahweh, of the Torah, and the things pertaining to Yahweh, truth, and life, right? We must show the greatest respect, for, the scripture scholars, the real teachers of the word, because they help us. They focus on that while we can focus on other things of the Israelite life. When they walk into the room, tradition has it that we should stand up. A lot of these practices we were doing before we got all into, intimidated, integrated. We must also be careful, right, to respect, our teachers. We always talk about they don't teach us nothing, or they bad teachers. Well, where's our teachers, right? Various punishments were defined for those engaging in child sacrifice, right? Child sacrifice. And it's interesting because we talk about Molech worship, but this is done in various ways that not overtly, but it's still, according to the spirit of the word, child sacrifice and sexual types of immorality, right? Such as what has become a legality amongst the Gentiles, homosexuality, right? These are also given in this Torah reading and feeding. And then the whole reasoning kind of sums up here with a final, one last, you could say, appeal to holiness, to set apartness. He says, I have separated you to be mine, right? I have separated you to be mine, right? This is the theme right here. Where hiyitem li kedoshim ki kadosh ani Yahuwah. Where abadiya la etakem amina ha amim lihiyot li. y'all shall be set apart to me, for I, he who he be, am Kadosh, Ki Kadosh Ani Yahuwah, and I have separated you, Wa Abdil Etikem, from other peoples, Min Ha'ami, that y'all should be mine, Lihiyot Li, Chabarim, right here, interesting right here. You know, we have a psalm right here. We're going to segue right here. But first of all, a couple of first words on today's daily psalm. But first, a message from I the Lion of Judah.
My advice to all is to fulfill the Ten Commandments. You are aware of the contents of the Ten Commandments and can elaborate on. If the nation for which I am the emperor follows and accepts this, since it's also what I accept and follow. I would believe our country is not only historically Christian, but also actively Christian.
You see, you hear right there. See about the 10 words, the 10 commandments. Then Gormali Nugus Neges, our anointed King of Kings of Ethiopia, conquering line the tribe of Judah, where he says right there, if the nation, so that is a choice factor. Even in the Torah, we have the if there. Even in the beginning of the book of Leviticus, if a man will give a sacrifice, let him do it this way. If the nation, right? And this was connected even right here with this nation of Yisrael, as much as that nation. It's kind of interesting because they had accepted it before they had rejected it. The Galus of creeping coup, that shows the absolute rejection of it. That's why when I went to the point about the light, you know what I mean? You know, concerning that separation, you know, of the light. And what was that point right here? This is one point right here. It's an interesting point because in hearing it now after going through this right here for Kedoshim, the context is one and the same, right? So it's almost like saying in the scripts, in the Torah, that was then, right? But the principle we are showing is now in these latter days and time. From that verse where it says that an Elohim saw that the light was good and how he separated the light from the darkness. Remember that reasoning right there? That the verse, it suggests that the realm of that which is Kadosh, right? We see about Abba Kedus. So Kedus in the Ethiopic sense brings out the Kadosh or the Kedosh sense, Kadosh sense. That the realm of the set apart that's represented by the light, right? The divine light, Genesis 1 and 4, is conceptually distinct from the world with its imperfection. But here's the point. Though that divine light, right, does manifest itself within the world, this is as long as and on the condition of its integrity being strictly maintained. It's kind of interesting how, even looking at Ethiopia and the Israelites of Ethiopia, how there was a strong maintenance, and even through the reign of His Majesty, but then coming to those latter days, and the words of His Majesty, not only historically, you know, Christian or of the true followers of Moshiach, right, but being actively. This puts into practical terms, right, practical ethics. Practice makes what? Practice makes perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's practicing. But here, let's ride up. Rolling again, Shalom Chavarим. Here we have today's daily psalm. We have
Psalm 90.
תהילים ספר רביעי מזמור צדה. Sade, 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 Sade. תפילה למשה איש האלוהים, 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 איש האלוהים. אדוני, 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 אדוני.
Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations, 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 generations.
אדוני, מעון אתה היית לנו בדור ודור, בדור ודור, בדור ודור, בדור ודור, בדור ודור, בדור ודור.
Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world, and the world, and the world, and the world, and the world.
ומעולם עד עולם, עד עולם, עד עולם, עד עולם, עד עולם, עד עולם.
Even from everlasting to everlasting to everlasting to everlasting to everlasting to thou art God, art God, art God, art God.
אתה אל, אתה אל, אתה אל, אתה אל, אתה אל, אתה אל.
Thou turnest man to destruction, and sayest, Return, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as asleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy wrath are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 60 years and 10, and if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. For it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knoweth the power of thine anger? Even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? And let it repent thee concerning thy servants. O satisfy us early with thy mercy, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad according to the days wherein thou hast afflicted us, and the years wherein we have seen evil. Let thy work appear unto thy servants, and thy glory unto their children. And let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands, establish thou, 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 establish.
Yes. It's going to share right here some of the Midrash here. Love to go through this psalm, of course, verse by verse, but some interesting areas just quickly. Remember, it's a song of Moses. Moses. That part often is not included, the small superscription, Moses, the Ish Elohim, the man of the Elohim, true good, true God. But it's a song of Moses, and it's attributed to Moses, and it recalls the wilderness tribe. And within that context, that 70, 80-year time period, that was a time that was specifically allotted, right, to those Israelites that had to do that 40-year bid. Right, so that's the context of that. It's not like there's a time stamp on people 70 or 80 years, although, as it says, it's according to ones as they believe. Even Moshe said that, as well. But that was the context of the song was specifically speaking about the Israelites, giving the Israelites journey and experience and Moses' prayer for them as an example. Teach us to number 9 days. Right here. Look at Midrash right here on today's daily psalm, Psalm 9.
Here, today's psalm, Mizmor Adai. Mizmor Adai. Here, today's psalm, Mizmor Adai. Mizmor Adai. Psalm 90. Here, beginning book 4. Mizmor Adai. Psalm XC, Psalm 90. Tefillah le Moshe. Ish ha-Elohim, a prayer, tefillah, of Moses, le Moshe, the man of God. Ish ha-Elohim, tefillah, le Moshe, Ish ha-Elohim. Here, the Aleph, the first verse, Psalm 90 and 1. These words are to be considered in the light of what Scripture says elsewhere, even in Mishlei Shlomo, in the Mashal Proverbs of Solomon, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 8, where it reads, "The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord." Zevach Risha'im To'evat Yahuwah, the sacrifice of the ratchet. Zevach Risha'im of the wicked. To'evat Yahuwah is an abomination to he who be, we be, is an abomination to Jehovah. Balaam, for example, was a wicked, a ratchet man who said to Balak, "Build me here 7 altars," in Bamidbar, in Numbers chapter 23, verse 1. Vayomer bi el-am il-balak b'nei li bazeh shivat mi zebohot. And Balaam said to Balak, Vayomer bi el-am il-balak, build me here 7 altars, b'nei li bazeh Shiva'ah, mi zibehot. But Hakadosh Baruch Hu, but the Holy One, blessed be He, replied, "O wicked man, O ratchet man, Rasha, shall I take offerings from thee, from the eye? Better is a handful of quietness." Ecclesiastes 4 and 6. Better is a handful of quietness. Tov Milo Kaf Nachat. Better is a handful of quietness. Tov Milo Kaf Nachat. That is to say, in my sight, the handful of fine flour that my children bring to me with their daily offering is better than all the sacrifices that thou wouldest offer up to me. They are an abomination to me. They are an abomination to I. Wherein do I delight? In the prayer of the upright, as is said, the sacrifice of the wicked, of the ratchet, is an abomination to Jehovah, but the prayer of the upright is his delight. Zevach Risha'im To'evati Yowa U'tefilata Isharima Rizonno, the sacrifice of the wicked, Zebach Risha'im, is an abomination to Jehovah. To'evat Yahuwah, but the prayer, Tefilat, of the upright, Yisharim, is his delight. Ritzono, Zebach Risha'im To'evati Yahuwah, Tefilata Yisharim Ritzono. The upright, Yisharim, being Amo Yisrael, being the people of Israel. Hence, here, a prayer of Moses, the man of Ha-Elohim, of the true good, the true God. Tefillah leMoshe, Ish Ha-Elohim. In exposition of a prayer of Moses, the man of Ha-Elohim. Tefillah leMoshe, Ish Ha-Elohim. Psalm 90 and 1. The Rebbeinu, the rabbis, and Rav Yehuda bar Shimon, Judah bar Simon differed. According to Ha-Rebbanim, according to the rabbis, the scholars of Torah, there were 4 who directed their prayers to Ha-Elohim, the true good, the true God, after they had chided HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after they had chided the Holy One, blessed be He, with their words. 1. Firstly, Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, Ermias, who said, "Now, after I had delivered the deed of the purchase, I prayed to Yahweh, to Jehovah." Yirmiyahu, Ermias, Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 16. Vayetapalala Eliyahu achrei titiya et sefer ha-mikna illa Baruch ben Neriah lemor. Now when I had delivered the evidence of the purchase to Baruch, the son of Neriah, I prayed to Yahweh, to Jehovah, to He who be, we be, saying. Yirmiyahu, Ermias, Jeremiah chided Ha-Elohim with his words. What had he said? Behold, the siege works, the Chaldeans are come to the city to take it. Here, Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 24. Hine ha solota ba'u ha'ir le lakadaha ve ha'ir nitna biyada ha kasadim ha nilachamim aleha mipneya ha chareb ve ha ra'av ve ha davar va asher dibarta haya ve hineka roeh. Behold, the mounts that are come to the city to take it, to take her. And the city is given to the hand of the Kasdim, the Chaldeans, that fight against it, that fight against her, because of the sword, and of the famine, and of the pestilence. And what thou hast spoken is come to pass, and behold, thou seest it. And here, Midrash note, Mizmor Sadai, Psalm 90. Why then should I have been told, what Yirmiyahu is saying here, the Midrash notice, why then should I have been told to purchase the field of Hanamiel? Secondarily, the second example, Habakkuk. Habakkuk directed his prayer to Philato, to Ha-Elohim, the true good, the true God, as is said, a prayer of Habakkuk, the prophet. Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 1 to 2. Tefillah la Habakkuk ha-navi al shigayonot Yahuwah shama'eti shima'eka yareiti Yahuwah pa'aleka b'karev shanim chayehu b'karev shanim todi'a b'rogez rachem tia zikor. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet upon Shigionot. Tefillah la Habakkuk ha-navi al Shigayonot. O Lord, I have heard the report of thee, of the eye, and am afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember compassion. Yahweh, Shama'iti, Yashim Eka, Yareiti. Oh, he who be, who he be, Yahweh, Shama'iti. I have heard, Shim Eka, Yareiti. I've heard the report of thee, of the eye, and am afraid, and am reverent. Yahweh, oh, he who be, Jehovah, Pa'alka, Bikreba Shanim, Chayehu, oh, he who be, revive thy work, in the midst of the years. Revive it, revive thy work. Bikreba Shanim, Chayehu, Bikreba Shanim, Todi'ah. In the midst of the years, make it known. Todi'ah. Bi'rogez rachem tizkor. In wrath, remember compassion. Bi'rogez rachem tizkor. But what had he said previously? I have heard thy speech and was afraid. I have heard thy speech and was afraid. Yahweh Shema'iti Shimeka Yareti. And here, Midrash note, I have heard thy speech. Midrash note, about the terrors of the Kasidi invasion. Yahweh Shema'iti Shimeka Yareti. And thirdly, David directed to Philato his prayer, Elotu, to Ha-Elohim, the true good, the true God, as is said, a prayer of David, even in Psalm 17, Hebraically the first verse, a prayer of David. And here, the superscription, Mizmor Yod Zain, Yuzain, Psalm 17, Psalm XVII, here, Hebraically, the first verse, superscription, Tefillah le Dawid, a prayer, Tefillah le Dawid, of David, of the loving, the well-beloved, Tefillah le Dawid. But what had he said previously? Here, Mizmor, here in Psalm 10, 14th verse, Hebraically, what did David say previously? Thou hast seen it. Thou, the eye, beholdest mischief and spite. Mizmor Yod, Psalm 10, Hebraically, the 14th verse, that reads, Ra'ita ki ata amal va'cha'as. Thou, the eye, hast seen. Ra'ita, the eye has seen. Ra'ita, ki ata, seeing, for the eye has seen. Ra'ita, ki ata, for thou, the eye, male, ki ata, amal wa ka'as. Thou beholdest mischief and spite. For thou beholdest, for the eye beholdest trouble and vexation. For the eye beholdest mischief and spite. Aita ki ata amal wa ka'as. And here, Midrash note, that is, Ha-Elohim, the true God, sees the wicked, the ratchet, contemn him, but he does nothing. This is to say, here, even from Mizmor Yod, Psalm 10, Hebraically, Ra'ita, Kiata, Amal, Wa, Ka'as. For thou beholdest mischief and strife, for thou beholdest trouble and vexation. That is to say, Hayel, the true God, Ha-Elohim, sees the wicked, the ratchet, Rishaim, the ratchet ones contemn him, but he does nothing. And fourthly, Moses directed Elotu, Tefilato, his prayer to Ha-Elohim, the true God, for he said, and I prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord God, destroy not thy people, even in Devarim, in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 26. And I prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord God, destroy not thy people. Va'etapalal li Yehovah, va'omar, Adonai Yehovah, ala tashacheta amecha. And I prayed to he who be, to Jehovah, Wa'etapalal li Yehovah, and said, Wa'omar, O Adonai, he who be, Adonai Yehovah, al tashchet amecha, destroy not thy people, al tashchet amecha. But what had he said previously? He said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, against Amekah? Here in Shemot, Exodus chapter 32, verse 11. And here from the KJV, King James Version, Shemot, Exodus 32:11. And Moses besought the Lord, his God, and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, that thou, the eye, hast brought forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the land of Egypt, with great power and with a mighty hand? Vayachal Moshe et pnei Yehovah Elohayo, vayomer lama Yehovah yechrei apeka be'ameka asher hotzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim be'koach gadol u'aviyad chazaka. And Moshe besought he who be, Jehovah Elohayo, his Elohim, and said, Yo, Jehovah, oh, he who be, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people. Vayachal Moshe et pnei Yehovah Elohayo. Vayomer lama yo yechrepka be'ameka. Rav Yehuda bar Rav Shimon, Rav Judah bar Rav Simon taught, but were not their very prayers chidings? Were not their very prayers chidings of him? Yeremiah, Jeremiah said, I prayed to the Lord in Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 16. I prayed to he who be, to Jehovah. Wa etapalel Elioah. I prayed to Jehovah, and began by saying, according to the words of Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 1, righteous art thou, O Lord, when I plead with thee. Tzaddik ata Yahuwah ki arif aleka. Right wouldest thou be, O he who be, O Jehovah, were I to contend with thee, with the eye. Tzaddik ata Yahuwah ki arib eleka, or translated as righteous art thou, O Jehovah. Tzaddik ata Yahuwah, when I plead with thee. Ki arib eleka, or right wouldest thou be, O Jehovah. Tzaddik ata Yahuwah, were I to contend with thee, were I to contend with the eye. Ki arib eleka. I who am here today and tomorrow in the grave, should I plead with thee, with the eye? Of what avail? Tzaddik ata Yahuwah ki arib eleka. Righteous art thou, O Jehovah, when I plead with thee, with the eye. Tzaddik ata Yahuwah ki arib eleka. Right wouldest the eye be, O Jehovah, were I to contend with thee. Nevertheless, Jeremiah went on to chide, saying, yet let me talk with thee of thy judgments. Wherefore doth the way of the wicked prosper? Ach, mishpatim edaber rotak. Madua derek rishaim tzaleach. Madua derek rishaim tzalecha. Yet will I reason with thee. Ak mishpatim edaber otak. Wherefore, why? Madua, why? Madua derek rishaim tzalecha. Wherefore, why doth the way of the wicked, of the ratchet, of the rishaim, the ratchet ones prosper? Madua derek rishaim tzalecha. Or translated as, yet make I talk with the eye of thy judgments. Ak mishpatim edaberotak. Wherefore doth the way of the wicked, of the ratchet prosper? Madua derek rishaim tzalecha. Habakkuk, and Bakum. Habakkuk began with a prayer of Habakkuk. Tefillah la Habakkuk. A prayer, Tefillah la Habakkuk, of Habakkuk. A prayer of Habakkuk, here. Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 1. But what did he say in Tefillato? What did he say in his prayer? O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. Yo, Shema iti, Shim eka, Yareti. I have heard thy speech and was afraid. Yo, Shema iti, Shim eka, Yareti. David, David began with a prayer of David in Psalm 17, verse 1. Tefillah le David, a prayer of David. Tefillah le David. Tefillah le David, a prayer of David. But what did he say in Tefilato? What did he say in his prayer? Even here in Mizmor Yod Zain, in Psalm 17, Hebraically verse 14, he said, deliver my soul from men that are thy hand, O Lord. Palitah nafshi mimatim yadika Yahweh, deliver my soul. Palitah nafshi, deliver. Palitah nafshi, deliver nafshi, deliver her, deliver nafshi, deliver my soul. Palitah nafshi, from men that are thy hand, O Yahweh, Jehovah, mimatim yadika Yahweh. And here, Midrash note, a Midrash note right here. These words are applied to Nebuchadnezzar, referred to the Midrash on Psalm 17, the 11th Perek, the 11th section. Moses began with, I prayed to the Lord in Devarim, in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 26. Wa eta palel Eliyahuwa, and I prayed to he who be, and I prayed to Jehovah. Wa eta palel Eliyahuwa el Yahweh, I prayed to Jehovah. But what did he say in Tefilato? In his prayer, he said, destroy not thy people. Destroy not thy people. Al tashchet ameka. Destroy not ameka, thy people. And here, Midrash note, he, Moshe, thus like this, spoke of Ha'el, the true God of Elohim, as a destroyer. When Moshe said, Al tashchet ameka, destroy not, don't destroy thy people. Hence, here, even in today's psalm, Mizmor Tzadai, a prayer of Moses, of Moshe, who chided Elohim, who chided God. Tefillah le Moshe, Ish ha-Elohim. And here, Midrash notes, apparently, Ish, man, is here read as a form of the Hebraic ush, meaning chide, to rebuke. Apparently right here, Ish, ha-Elohim, Ish, man of Elohim, is here read as a form of ush ha-Elohim, meaning to chide, to rebuke ha-Elohim, to rebuke the true good, the true God. Yes. Chant right here. There's a reason that we want to share, because I read it the way it was read, like chidings from one of the Midrash right there. But what is chiding? What is chiding, brothers and sisters? Grab the phone. Hold on for a moment. Okay, here, because about to wrap up. This is a Monday podcast, so it's a little bit later. So I said, let me look up chide for a moment. What is chide? Because that's that old English sense, and one's here chide, and they're like chide. Like nobody talks that way today. So let's break down this word chide, right? Because here in this Midrash, it shows that many of the prophets, Moshe himself, he chided with Yahuwah. He chided with Jehovah. What is chide? One of the first places that chide appears in the scriptures in Exodus 17:2, where it says, Wherefore the people did chide with Moses
and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said to them, why chide y'all with me? Wherefore tempt y'all with Jehovah? So chide, right, has a sense, the word is reeb and rub. It means to strive, to contend, to strive physically, like somebody strives physically, almost like fight, strive physically, or with words, chiding with words, words going back and forth. But this context, Hebraically, to chide also is to conduct a case or like a lawsuit, like two, attorneys going back and forth to conduct a case or a lawsuit. It's an argument, but it's like a legal argument, right? To sue someone is also to make that legal argument. Or chide, Hebraically, also the rub, the reeb, makarkar, karakar, and bamarinya, but here from the Hebrew, to make complaint, to make a complaint. And fourthly, it has a sense of to quarrel, to contend against, to contend against. And it's kind of interesting because it kind of shows the true and the practical, the real relation of the Hebrews and the Israelites, especially the prophets and others, with the true power. In other words, Moses even said to Yahweh, he said, repent of this evil that you're about to do your people. What? Is he calling Yahweh an evildoer? He's about to destroy this people. And what Moses said there. So Moses, in a sense, chided. The different prophets also chided. In other words, they contended. They, in a sense, they disputed something that they didn't fully understand or grapple or grasp, right? Or they even complained, or quarreled against. Or in Moses' case, he defended. He was defending even the sinning Israelites, to Jehovah, right? And he says, why are you going to destroy your people? What would the other nations say? So he, like a lawyer, he made a good kind of argument. But I just wanted to clarify that right there, because one might hear the word chide and might not get a good kind of contextual sense of chide. But here, just briefly, this podcast has been more to the 30th sabbatical study, Kedoshim. We didn't share the audio just yet right here, but sought to kind of break down and build on what does holy really mean. What are these other words that translate holy that cause confusion, in some versions, like we pointed to in Exodus chapter 28. In the second, I think the fourth or so verse, the same Hebrew word is used as holy and as consecrate. Yet if set apart and holiness, set apartness was used, there can be more of a practical, as one would say, a real world application, the practical application of Ha-Torah. But to today's daily psalm right here, dub-wise, Jajaro.
תהילים ספר רביעי מזמור צדה Adonai, 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 Adonai.
Lord, thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations.
Adonai, מעון אתה היית לנו בדור ודור.
Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever thou hadst formed the earth and the world.
ומעולם עד עולם.
Even from everlasting to everlasting. Thou art God.
אתה אל.
Thou turnest man to destruction, and sayest, return, ye children of men. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. Thou carriest them away as with a flood, they are as asleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the morning it flourisheth and groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. For we are consumed by thine anger, and by thy wrath are we troubled. Thou hast set our iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. For all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow. For it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knoweth the power of thine anger? Even according to thy fear, so is thy wrath. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? And let us repent thee concerning thy servant. O satisfy us early with thy mercy, that we may rejoice and be glad all our days. Make us glad according to the days wherein thou hast afflicted us, and the years wherein we have seen evil. Let thy work appear unto thy servants, and thy glory unto their children. And let the beauty of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish thou the work of our hands upon us. Yea, the work of our hands, establish thou, establish thou, establish thou, establish thou, establish.
Yes. Right here, the outro. That was Rising Sun Classic Roots Reggae. Right there, Rising Sun with a tune called Jaja Robe. Robe, I think he said the Robe of Calvary. Yeah, Jaja Robe. Right here, the A side.
And soon
Barhana Tensayo, light of his resurrection, keep rising and shining, brothers and sisters. Shalom, Chaverim, double eyes, control. Kedoshim, Tihiyu, Kedoshim, set apart ones, holy ones, Tihiyu, all y'all be, may we become set apart ones to he who we be, HaKadosh, Baruchu, Baruch Hashem. Shabbat Tov, Chaverim, Laila Tov, right here, and a Boker Tov for the new light, the new rise. Let's keep counting, growing in grace and the knowledge of the King of Kings Christ, Adonai, Yeshua HaMoshiach. Shalom, Chaverim. Shalom.